In the next section, we will be introducing you to the WinCC flexible functions in detail. There will also be a discussion about efficient engineering, smart access, smart service, totally integrated automation, and ready for validation. With its ergonomic user-specific operator interface, WinCC Flexible ensures that you always have an overview of everything you need. Your work environment consists of multiple elements, some of which are linked to specific editors and are visible only when the relevant editor is active. You will find a list of windows below. The Workspace window is the window in which you edit the objects in the project. All elements of WinCC Flexible are grouped around the Workspace window. With the exception of the Workspace window, you can arrange and configure the elements to suit your personal needs, for example, move or hide them. All components and available editors of a project are displayed in a tree structure in the Project window and can be opened there. As sub-elements of each editor, you will see files in which you can store objects in structured form. In addition, displays, recipes, scripts, protocols, and user dictionaries are directly linked to the configured objects. In the Object window, you will have access to the device settings for the panel, language support, and version management. The Properties window is where you edit an object's properties, for example, the color of display objects. In the Tool window, you will find a section of objects which you can insert in your displays, for example, graphic objects and control elements. You can also access libraries with fully tested library objects and collections of display driver blocks in the Tool window. The Object window is where the elements you selected in the Project window are displayed. The user interface language is used for menu entries, title bars, help texts, texts in dialog windows, and other designations on the WinCC Flexible User Interface. You can select the following user interface languages during the installation of WinCC Flexible. In the Western version, German, English, Spanish, Italian, and French. In the Asian version, Chinese, Taiwan, Chinese, People's Republic of China, Japanese, and Korean. During configuring, you can change the configuration interface. For example, when multiple configuration engineers of different nationalities are working with WinCC Flexible. WinCC Flexible supports you in the creation of multilingual configurations. Projects can be created with up to 32 languages for worldwide use, as many as 16 of which, depending on the target system, can be downloaded, making it possible to switch back and forth between them online. Selectable views during configuration allow multilingual input of configuration data. Language-dependent texts are managed in the text library. Language-dependent graphics in the graphics library. You can import and export texts, for instance, in order to have them externally translated by a service provider using standard tools. In WinCC Flexible, you are supported in the translation of projects by a variety of dictionaries. The System Dictionary is supplied together with WinCC Flexible and contains common terms from the world of process automation and their translations. The System Dictionary is read-only and can be modified in any way. You can store the translations of terms used repeatedly in your project texts in user dictionaries. You can insert terms from project texts directly from editors into a user dictionary or edit a user dictionary in an editor of the same name. In your system, you can create multiple user dictionaries which are then available to all projects. When the Automatically Translate function is activated in the project texts editor, all dictionaries are searched for the terms to be translated, and terms that are found are entered as suggested translations in the project texts editor. You can then either accept or change these suggested translations. Mass data editing supports the simultaneous creation and editing of multiple objects. Configuring is much more efficient, saving both time and costs. While conventional configuration software requires a variety of time-consuming steps, you can do the work required in a very short time with WinCC Flexible. The procedure is very familiar to users of MS Office. You select the line or element you want and create the new objects using drag and drop. Example: generating an I/O field automatically by dragging and dropping a variable in the display, or simply selecting a display by dragging the object into the display image. Two additional examples would be multiple modifications. You can change identical settings for several variables at one time. For example, variable type or controller. Automatic address allocation. When you create multiple variables with process interface which are stored contiguously in the controller's memory, you can have the address space automatically incremented for each variable. With WinCC Flexible, you can easily represent process sequences, such as the transporting of a product on a conveyor belt, in just a few steps. What used to require many individual steps can now be done quickly and easily with WinCC Flexible. You simply mark an object, for example, insert it into your process display at the desired location, and select the required type of animation. By setting a start point and an end point, you define the movement path for the object in the process display. You then assign this movement path a variable whose value represents the actual position of the object. At runtime, this value then determines the relative position of the object on the movement path. This is also shown in the following runtime sequence. Display navigation means creation of a configurable display hierarchy for process displays. With the aid of display navigation, you can define a fixed navigation structure for your project. Using the navigation bar, the user can switch back and forth between the individual displays at runtime, as per the configured hierarchical display levels. In the Display Navigation Editor, you place the displays at the desired location in the display hierarchy using drag and drop. You can also configure direct links between displays. Libraries are collections of configured display objects. You can expand the number of available display objects and increase their effectiveness during configuration, since library objects can be used over and over again without being reconfigured. Extensive libraries are provided together with WinCC Flexible, for example, for motors or valves, but you can also define new library objects yourself. The handling of graphics in different formats is not the least bit complicated. The graphics that come with WinCC Flexible and your own graphics are displayed using a graphic browser and integrated in Project Display using drag and drop. In the open display, for example, the placement of graphics in the work area using drag and drop generates a graphical display or enables the labeling of buttons or soft keys. WinCC Flexible is A display driver block is a pre-configured object group which can be configured and modified from a central location. Display driver blocks are used to expand the number of available display objects and reduce configuration overhead, while at the same time ensuring your project's a uniform appearance. Display driver blocks are created and modified using the editor of the same name. One of the several things you do when creating a display driver block is to specify which interfaces the display driver block is to have and what events can be configured on it. The properties of a display driver block can be derived from the properties of the object integrated in that block. Once you have created a display driver block, it appears as object in the project library. You can then insert the block in your process displays and configure or assign parameters to its interfaces in the Properties window for the relevant location. Any modifications made to a display driver block are automatically made at all locations in the projects. For common configuration tasks, WinCC Flexible provides predefined system functions with which you can perform many tasks in runtime without any programming experience. Any problems which exceed those which can be fulfilled by the predefined system functions can be resolved with Runtime Scripting, a programming interface with which you can access parts of the project data or objects in runtime. The use of runtime scripting is intended for configuring engineers with experience in Visual Basic and Visual Basic Script, or VBS, and is available for panels in the 270 class or newer and for WinCC Flexible Runtime for PCs. In the Script Assistant, you can predefine system function parameters and then insert them into the code using drag and drop. The Script Assistant also provides frequently required statement instruction templates, such as if, then. During programming, you will be additionally supported by IntelliSense functionality, for example, with context-dependent object selection. The SmartAccess option from WinCC Flexible allows you to implement communication between HMI systems. Suitable for this purpose are panels and multi-panels of the 270, 370, and XP177B color series, as well as the mobile panels 177PN and PCs with WinCC Flexible Runtime. The scenarios below are examples of those you can implement with the aid of communication between HMI systems. Coordinated operator stations. Distributed HMI. Communication between HMIs using the SIMATIC HMI HTTP protocol. Remote monitoring and control of installed systems. Data access from other applications over Web Service SOAP. Communication between HMIs via the SIMATIC HMI HTTP protocol. The SIMATIC HMI HTTP protocol allows you to make a panel's or server's variables available to another panel or client, giving local or central panels access to other stations' variables. This makes it easy to implement cell concepts or line concepts and make distributed information centrally available. This concept also makes it possible to set up small and cost-effective central control posts. Use of a PC for this purpose results in additional possibilities for archiving, analysis, and further processing of the acquired process data. Co-Ordinated Operator Stations. Distributed HMI. Coordinated operator stations can be used for the control of large or widely distributed machines and plants. The operator can control and monitor the plant from different locations, but only one operator station can access the device with the configuration at any given time. The operator sees the same display on every operator station and on the device with the configuration. Since there is only one master configuration, modifications need be made only once. Remote Monitoring and Control Room Solution. Using a combination of the SIMATIC HMI HTTP protocol and Smart Server allows you to implement a complex control room solution. You display the variables of interest from the panels on the control room PC. Using the PC for remote monitoring and control of a specific panel when required. The local panels are thereby linked to one another, allowing general control of the entire process. The concept of teleservice is made possible by the use of the Smart Client display in the control room's HMI application. Thanks to flexible configuration of the Smart Client display, the operator can access the desired local panel. Data access from other applications via Web Service SOAP. Data interchange is also possible between panel and Office applications, for example MS Excel, with the aid of a VBA macro. For this to be possible, the panel must support the Web Service SOAP. The Simple Object Access Protocol, SOAP, is used for interchanging data. In the external application, a customized script or macro is called, and reads or writes the relevant variable in the prescribed syntax. With WinCC Flexible, ready for validation is now also applicable at the industrial control level. It covers the most important demands of GMP, Good Manufacturing Practice, and the requirements of the FDA, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, to 21 CFR Part 11 for applications requiring validation, for instance in the areas of access control, the tracing of operator actions or modifications, archiving, and logging. WinCC Flexible ensures the implementation of access protection mechanisms, making sure that only authorized persons have access to the panel within the bounds of their responsibility. Every user is allocated to a user group with defined functional rights within the system. These users must register with the system in runtime with a two-component authorization consisting of user ID, for example, name, and password. This prevents unauthorized users from doing things such as changing recipes or starting process steps without proper authorization. All in accordance with the strict stipulation that actions taken within the plant must be allocatable to specific persons. WinCC Flexible also fulfills the requirements and/or additional regulations regarding password aging to ensure that passwords are changed at regular intervals. Regarding password generation, so that the same passwords will not be used over and over again, and regarding the blocking of users by the administrator and the automatic logout due to longer periods of user inactivity. WinCC Flexible supports you completely as regards the fulfillment of requirements pertaining to access control. Operator actions, such as the entry of setpoint values, or the backing up and loading of recipes, can also be made traceable based on the additional prompt for an electronic signature and a comment, which of course also automatically become part of the audit trail. During the process, all GMP-relevant changes to variables and operator actions are recorded as audit trail in a CSV file. The audit trails registered in the project can easily be visualized using a viewer, making it possible to establish exactly who did what and when, and all with minimal configuration overhead. In addition, a checksum procedure is used to make sure that the data in the audit trail are free from manipulation. Once a plant has been put into operation and validated, changes in the configuration may become necessary when plant renovations or expansions take place. All changes in a configuration must be recorded and documented by means of reproducible version releases, particularly in the software. With WinCC Flexible Change Control, every type of configuration change can be recorded and versioned. A project version is a copy of a project which is stored in a fixed location by the version manager. Every project version documents a particular release of your project. You can fall back on an older release and compare releases with one another. Its use in machine construction or special machine construction is a good idea if you want to manage your projects well. For example, to document customer versions which have been delivered and document changes after the fact. In the case of contract jobs, tracking changes with change control can also serve as the basis for computing expenditures. The changelog documents all changes made in a project in a continuous table. The log contains the changed objects and object properties. Every project has its own changelog. As long as it is active, configuration changes are recorded. The changed objects table records each changed object on a separate line. The changed properties table lists the changed object properties in detail. Different project changes are combined into a single change. In the Changed Objects table, all configuration changes in the same object appear on the same line. In the associated Changed Properties table, all configuration changes to the same object properties appear on the same line. integrated configuration, programming, database management and communication, integrated system and process diagnostics, reduction in the total cost of ownership. That is totally integrated automation from Siemens. If you are using a SIMATIC controller and have installed the Step 7 configuration software on your system, you can integrate WinCC Flexible in Step 7. The Somatic Manager serves as central control point for the creation, processing and management of the SIMATIC controllers and HMI operator panels. You have access to all objects in WinCC Flexible via the Somatic Manager. The links between objects in WinCC Flexible and operands on the control level are easily configured by selecting symbols on the controllers. All objects in WinCC Flexible which can be linked to a variable are suitable for the transfer of variables to the location. For example, a linear regulator. Open the selection dialog for the variable in the Linear Regulator's Properties window. Navigate to the S7 program in the relevant controller and select the required symbol from the symbol list or from a data block. The system automatically creates a variable in WinCC Flexible and links it with the associated operand in Step 7. If desired, the symbolic name from Step 7 can be taken over as the name of the variable. You can use the Smart Service option for remote control, diagnostics, and servicing of operator stations over the Internet or intranet. Suitable are panels of the 270 series, XP177B, and Mobile Panel 177PN, as well as multi-panels and PCs with WinCC Flexible Runtime. And now the functions one by one. Remote servicing a panel over the Internet Explorer. Providing service and maintenance functions via HTML pages. Dispatching emails. Dispatching emails. In runtime, emails can be sent automatically to service personnel via an SMTP, or Simple Mail Transfer Protocol server. The sending of an email is triggered, for example, by a message in a specific message class, an event in which the send email function is configured, for example, a change in the value of a variable, or so on. Remote control of a panel over the Internet Explorer. A panel configured as Smart Server can be remotely monitored or controlled from a smart client. Remote service following receipt of an email. A plant has a service contract with an external service company. The panel in the plant and the PC belonging to the authorized service technician are linked to one another over a TCP/IP-capable network. The sending of email to the service technician containing specific messages has been configured in the project. The service technician receives an email triggered by a message in runtime. The technician establishes a connection to the panel with the aid of the MS Internet Explorer. Initially, he sees the panel's start page, where he first calls up the system messages and device information, for example, the version release of the image. Using remote control, the service technician can lock into the panel from his workstation in order to make changes in the system controller or to bring the machines back to an initial position by accessing the process. In the Microsoft Internet Explorer, he has the operator interface displayed right on his workstation. In the manner described above, the technician can operate the panel from his workstation and monitor the ongoing process. He can take the necessary steps immediately and estimate the urgency with which actions need to be taken on the machine at the local level. Advantage: a message received in good time by the service technician helps reduce unplanned downtimes to a minimum. Providing service and maintenance functions via HTML pages. An integrated web server provides standard HTML pages with the following functions: remote control, starting and stopping HMI runtime for the purpose of servicing, remote access to recipe data records, password lists and system-specific information, access to the station's files via the integrated file browser, and downloading of configuration data. The standard HTML pages can be supplemented with one's own HTML pages.